We made this.
Welcome to ChuckyVision, the podcast about Chucky, child's play, and things that are, well, linked to it, sometimes very precariously. My name is Mark Adams and I am your host today, and with me, as always, is my co-host, Dev. Hello, Dev.
Hello, Mark. This is precariously. Well, I don't know. Is it tangentially related? It is somewhat innately related. It is our title, but then it's also distinctly not Chucky.
No. So, in our defence, we are doing ChuckleVision, but in our defence, we put it up for vote. This is a listener's vote winner, ChuckleVision, I'll have you know. So I completely absolve us from any responsibility of whether or not this is linked to Chucky or not. But essentially, you're right. ChuckleVision became ChuckyVision because I am a 45-year-old man-child. And we wanted to do a podcast about Chucky. And we were like, what should we call it? ChuckyVision.
Well, let's address the tangentially thing, because let's pull back the curtain a bit. I think this is a discussion worth having on the air, especially since you mentioned that this was voted by the listeners. I definitely would like to see whoever voted for this, if they listen to our thoughts on this, and then these episodes we watched on YouTube, we did link them on our Twitter, at ChuckyVision. Give them a go. Did those people vote, even though they didn't know what it quite was? And after they've given it a go, what do they think? Because that's what I'm genuinely, because we have talked about doing non-horror stuff on this podcast. I think there's Venn diagrams. We are a Chucky podcast. Horror, doll movies, it's very much in that Venn diagram. Horror, just other horror movies, slightly in the same Venn diagram. But then non-horror feels like its own circle. And I've brought it up with other podcasts I listen to. A great one I listen to is With Gawley and Rust. And the two hosts on that, they do cozy horror. So they really like Jaws, like sweaters and the sun and, just like comfortable horrors,
right.
Yeah, comfortable horrors. And they have ventured out at times in doing they did Yuppie Nightmares, which was like those 90s verging on horror thrillers, Basic Instinct and thrillers like that.
Right.
And they have quite a lively Discord, an active Discord, and the fans are very vocal on that they're just like, yeah, this isn't horror, so I'm just not going to listen to these. And that, I kind of assume, is the mindset, not to say the mindset of our listeners, but I mean, that's the mindset of people who listen to a horror podcast. What's interesting is, though, that they voted for this.
Yeah, and I think you're absolutely right, because we are essentially a very niche within a niche podcast. And whilst, we've done all the Chucky films, we do episode by episode of Chucky, there are periods of time where we have to put in stuff. And our initial idea was just to do all stuff with dolls and puppets and things like that in it. But it has become more and more silly. And that's because that's what I like doing. I've already done that with my Red Dwarf podcast. And another peek behind the curtain, our least popular episode is Bound, which we watched because it was directly referenced in the Chucky TV series. And I don't know, I really enjoyed looking at Bound with you, but it clearly wasn't one that our listeners wanted to engage with. And let's be real, ChuckleVision is one of the most British things you can possibly watch. And we're talking more than 65% of our audience is our American friends. I don't know what people are going to get out of this, but we're still fucking doing it because it's a winner and I want to do it and it's funny. And well, no, it's not funny. We have discovered, having watched 4 episodes of it.
Is it the same reason why people voted Annabelle? Not because they thought it was a great movie, but because they wanted to torture us?
Maybe. That's a good point, actually. They've picked 2 cack things.
But again, in terms of tangential and slightly related and stuff, this is similar to a podcast that I think our conversation is going to be similar to a podcast format that you did. I don't know if you want to sneak in the theme tune to Right in the Childhood.
Ha!
What we're having now is going to be the conversation that is often had on your show. We're 2 generations, and we both know well what ChuckleVision is, but do we have different perspectives on it?
I hadn't even thought about that, and for those of you that don't know, Right in the Childhood is a podcast. It's finished now, but it's still available on Spotify, etc., wherever you're listening to ChuckyVision. And it was where me and my friend Fraser, we took it in turns to select a treasured childhood telly show. And the gimmick was that we've got a bit of an age difference, which is about the same age difference as me and Dev. I would be looking at stuff when I'd been an adult, and he would have been looking at stuff when he would have been too young to have watched it, or indeed not alive. So yeah, that was the gimmick of that podcast. It's a shame it died, but Fraser travelled the world. But yeah, so you're absolutely right. I hadn't even thought about that. It's very similar in a lot of ways to Right in the Childhood.
And I will say, I think we definitely discussed me taking the reins, but I am different from Fraser in that I have seen as much as your stuff as I have Fraser's. So there was very little that you could surprise me with. And that's the same thing with ChuckleVision. Yeah. I know ChuckleVision probably just as well as you do, which is not to say that we're super fans.
Yeah, but why is it that you're so engaged with, frankly, old shit? You watch 80s horror films, you watch ChuckleVision, you've watched all my cultural references you get, and you're like, what? What's 45 minus 28?
Oh god, maths. Not our forte. But I'm almost 30. I'll be 30 soon.
That many years younger than me.
I don't know what it is. I grew up with VHS. I mean, that's the thing. I say I grew up with VHS, but then VHSs were around until early 2000s. And also the ChuckleVision, the Chuckle Brothers were around that long. This is what, to put into perspective, the Chuckle Brothers had a TV show that is very simple, slapstick, for young kids. Their show went from 1987 to 2009.
That's 22 years.
It spans generations. Like, you would have grown up with it, I would have grown up with it, and it was basically the same show.
And it's a very British thing. It's a very British childhood thing. And 22 years, 21 seasons, 292 episodes. Full disclosure, we didn't watch all 292 episodes. We watched 4. We chose the first episode, the final episode, the first Halloween special, and a second Halloween special from Series 8. So we're going to be having a look at those very briefly as like an example of ChuckleVision. But maybe if I go through what ChuckleVision is for our American friends, it's a venture by 2 brothers, legitimately brothers, that their stage name is Chuckle. Paul and Barry Chuckle. And I think their real names are Paul and Barry.
Yeah, Paul and Barry Elliot.
That's right. And they have some very distinctive catchphrases that most people that were a kid around those years would know, like to me, to you, to me, to you, oh dear, and no slacking.
It's very pantomime. Humour, that kind of back and forth, get the audience involved,
gentle slapstick is what I put in my notes as well.
As the show goes on, it's kind of like, for American audiences, it's like Three Stooges or Abbott and Costello. Probably less physically involved, less slapstick than like Chaplin but there's mild physical stunts and most of it is just like the pantomime vocal, back and forth, who's on first, those kind of jokes.
Yeah, and puns and simple jokes that kids will get. And it's very much a big brother, younger brother kind of dynamic between the two. Paul is the older brother and he's a bit of a bully. He's a bit lazy and gets his brother to do stuff. He can be a bit mean as well, let's be honest. And having watched some of it now, he gaslights his brother as well. Now, that wasn't my memory from childhood. Paul was just as hapless and rubbish as Barry. But no, he's actually a little bit manipulative and a bit cruel, I thought, from what we've seen.
Well, he's hapless in a different way. He drags his brother along for all of his schemes and plans, but then he is not that much more intelligent.
No, they're both clearly played up as being dopey as fuck.
Yeah.
And they travel around doing various things in their Chuckmobile. Now, Dev, did you know that you can hire the Chuckmobile now for weddings and funerals?
Oh, yeah, the classic Chuckle one, yeah.
So, unfortunately, none of my wedding couples or funeral people have hired the Chuckmobile, but we can only hope that in future I'll be able to be the celebrant for a ceremony that does involve the Chuckmobile.
Now, it's funny, though, that you have broken down the formula of what ChuckleVision is. From all my times of watching ChuckleVision as a kid, which was the early to mid-2000s stuff, yeah, that is the format. They go around doing odd jobs, getting into funny adventures, and then, yeah, the status quo is reset every episode. So it's just the same formula. But that's not how the show started.
No, and I'll be honest, it was the same for me. I didn't remember it being almost like a breakfast TV show in Series 1.
And that is why I picked out that 4th episode, because two of the 3 episodes we looked at were the old formula, and that wasn't really what ChuckleVision is. And even, we'll get to it, the final episode is not what ChuckleVision usually is.
No. But I'll tell you what, did you have a look at the list of people who wrote for ChuckleVision?
Who wrote for it? No, I did not.
Mostly it was the Chuckle brothers and a chap called John Sale. However, one of the first gigs of a very, very important writer was ChuckleVision. Have you heard of a chap called Russell T. Davis?
Wow, I did not know RTD was, wow, that's humble beginnings.
Yeah. He wrote Dark Season and ChuckleVision in his very early career. If you've not seen Dark Season, that's well worth watching. It is dark as fuck.
I want now the ChuckleVision reboot. And it's like a regenerated Chuckle Brothers, but they've clearly gone through some kind of Chuckle War that we slowly learn the backstory to.
But we can't do that because Barry is dead. It is sad. I was actually genuinely quite kind of like, ow, right in the childhood when Barry Chuckle died a couple of years back. And yeah, I feel like Paul's probably very lonely now.
I always see him. I always see him in the news. I don't, but I mean, I very occasionally see him in the pop culture news. They're public personalities, aren't they? Yeah. Celebrities for who they are. They are the Chuckle Brothers. And both of them when Barry was around, and now I think even Paul himself, they'll quote unquote DJ, they'll show up at events.
They'll record music tracks with Tinchy Strider.
Exactly.
Did you see
they just
that?
do funny stuff. I did see that, yeah.
It was so fucking great. We'll put that on the socials. It's the most ridiculously modern British thing that you'll ever get. You've got the fucking Chuckle Brothers, who are like 80s childhood fucking campery Britishness. And then you've got Tinchy Strider, who's kind of like cool, modern, rappy Britain. And what a fucking combination that was. So it is pretty much unheard of outside of Britain. And I was on the LGBT in the Ring podcast in January of this year. And Brian, when I mentioned ChuckleVision, I can't remember why, he was like, what's that? So I explained what it was. And he was like, I'm going to watch that. And I said, don't. But he did. And, he was just confused. He messaged me afterwards and was like, what the fuck is this? So, yeah, I was delighted that I got an American to watch ChuckleVision. So I thought I'd do it again with all of our listeners as well.
Yeah, it's, as we said, it's aimed at young kids. It's kind of a difficult show to go back and just be like, oh, I remember watching this as a kid, I'll watch it now. It's like, what's that thing that all the kids watch? Cocomelon? If that, I'm only vaguely aware of its existence. But yeah, it's like ChuckleVision, it's just kind of like noise that kids enjoy. Like, the jokes are there. The jokes do make sense, but...
They're definitely jokes, but I'm not sure they're good jokes.
Yeah, it's not like, oh, I grew up watching Friends, and I'll go back and watch Friends again. You know? It's a show, but it's not a show, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. So, we picked 4 episodes. Season 1, Episode 1, Breakfast. Season 21, Episode 6, See How They Run. Season 1, Episode 6, Halloween. And Season 8, Episode 6, Chucklestein. Shall we have a look at, I guess it was the pilot, Breakfast?
Yeah.
So, like we said, this isn't the ChuckleVision I remember. This is essentially like a breakfast TV pastiche.
It's a very odd format because it's essentially the Chuckle Brothers have their own show and it's them in just a blank sort of studio with like a desk, and then it's like, as you said, kind of the breakfast formula of we're going to do the weather, we're going to do the news, but it's like most of the jokes are about the fact that we're doing this for the first time. It's a very strange, insular kind of comedy for this.
Yeah, but, you know, it starts with magnificent mullets, and for their entire career, they had magnificent mullets, which I'm delighted about.
Yeah, they had mullets and mustaches, and their style never changed.
Not one bit.
Which kind of makes them very weirdly timeless, like...
Yes, I agree.
You said they were very young when the show started, when you watched this episode, but it's like, no, they were like early 40s when they started this in the 80s.
Yes, they looked young compared to my memories of them.
Yeah.
But they looked older than I do now in this fucking episode. But I meant comparatively young when we had our conversation, not actually young.
Yeah.
Because no one looks young with a mullet and a tash.
But then strangely, because they never changed their style, Paul Chuckle now doesn't look hugely older because he's always looked like
they're
that.
50 for forever.
Yeah.
And, yeah, I did mention gaslighting, and holy crap, there's some nasty gaslighting in this. The way Paul treats his brother. Barry is so sweet and kind, and Paul's just a massive twat who convinces him that everything is his fault. I mean, fucking hell.
Yeah, it's again the back and forth formula. There's always a downtrodden one. It's the same with Laurel and Hardy, isn't it? It's that pantomime again. You know, you laugh at the gaslighting because it's so obviously set up that the one in charge is also going to get his comeuppance.
True. And it's very kind of daft, old-fashioned British humour as well, isn't it? And it's not very funny. I wonder whether it was at the time and we're just a bit more sophisticated now. But I don't think so. I think it was probably always just a bit naff.
Yeah, there's 2 clear examples of the whatever goes comedy they're doing. One is Paul asks for a sofa for their guests who are coming up, and there's an extended joke where Barry goes out and he gets a sofa, but then it's on wheels, and it's just him, like, pushing it through town, like, with the actual public all having a laugh. He pushes it onto a ferry, which I guess is a funny sight gag when it zooms out and it's just him sitting on a sofa in the middle of, the sea. But yeah, he just keeps going. And it's like, okay, that's the joke, but, like, add something to it. And that's basically it. And then, the kind of their back and forth is... Oh, I don't think it's rusty or new or anything like that, because I believe they were actual stand-up people, weren't they, before this? Like,
I think so.
I think this is a similar case as a lot of people of, like, say, Seinfeld, where they had this back and forth but 2-man performance on stage, and then they were given a show, and so that's why a lot of their it's very stagey comedy, but now on TV. And so you get these jokes where he's listing the guests and he says he has Wayne Sleet and Elton John, and then Barry's like, lame sheep and elephants gone.
Yeah.
They vaguely rhyme. Okay.
And Wayne Sleep overslept. I mean, these jokes are beyond dad jokes, you know?
Yeah. But then occasionally, some of them, I mean, I did not laugh out loud at this episode, but like, there are some that play a bit more naturally. Like, let's take a look at the latest videos, and then they just pull out a handful of VHSs, and they just look at it and go, they're very nice. That's, you know, that's done a bit better, where it's like, yeah, simple joke, but like they play it off better. So, like, that's fine.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a bit light bulb, heavy bulb, isn't it? It's all very kind of old-fashioned British humour. And I think that's kind of what I was expecting, because, you know, old-fashioned British humour, I'm old enough for when it was fashionable British humour.
Again, the same thing with, this feels like, again, like a live sketch that they did, and it played off well, so they put it in this, the weather sketch.
Yes.
With doing the, and again, that's kind of funny, the way they do it with him drawing it, instead of a screen, it's the chalkboard, where they have this detailed picture of England, and then Barry's drawing the rain on it, and Paul says, but it'll clear up later. So Barry wipes it away, but of course he wipes away the actual map of England. And then, of course, at the end of it, he's wiped away the whole thing, so nothing's there. Again, is it laugh out loud funny? I don't know, but like...
No.
It's funny in concept. It's not cringe.
Yeah.
Terrible.
And considering it was like 20 minutes, there was a lot of gags. They just threw gags again and again and again.
Yeah, and we will see later, the last episode we picked, which was, what was it? Season 8. Mm-hmm. By that season, and I think probably before then, I'd imagine by season 2, when their sort of odd jobs formula comes in, like their back and forth is so much faster in later seasons. Yeah. And it's so much smoother, and there's so many more jokes.
Yeah. Now, one thing about this episode that I had no memory about at all was when they go to the storytelling.
Philippa Pierce.
Yeah.
Yeah, this episode was about, what was it, around 20 minutes. Some of them are like 18, some of them are like 22. But this was about 20 minutes. And I looked at it. So it was a guy, and he's sat about. It's kind of directed visually. There's nice visuals. He's doing stuff as the story goes. But it's a different guy, not related to the Chuckle Brothers, telling a story. You know, he's relaying a kid's story and kind of bringing it to life. But yeah, this goes on for 8 minutes. It's almost half the show.
It's kind of like Jackanory, but...
Yeah.
I think that's okay, but it wasn't what I was expecting.
Yeah, for this, as you said, the first episode, the pilot, ChuckleVision was a variety show at first, and then they found their footing, which was, essentially, it's in the name, ChuckleVision. They are the Chuckle Brothers. People want to see the Chuckle Brothers, not these other people. Yeah,
and the thing is... They didn't even have the classic ChuckleVision logo at this point. It was a weird one that, again, I didn't recognise.
Yeah, they're definitely coming into their own here, trying to find it. Because, again, there's other guys, I don't think they said his name, but, like, he was the guy who had the newspaper, and then he does a magic trick, but, like, the magic trick doesn't even work, though, because they're cutting between two cameras. So... he tears up a newspaper, and then he scrunches it together, and then the newspaper's back together. But there's cuts, so we don't know if that's an actual magic trick. I don't mean magic. I mean, we don't know if he could do that on stage, or that's just a cut for TV.
Yeah, I mean, I've done stuff like that on a green screen myself, where you do cuts to make it magical. So, did you kind of... raise an eyebrow when it was called Elm Street Lot?
I did, yeah, but I don't know. I guess that's just that'll be up for the author of that book, I guess.
Yeah, well, Elm Street Lot by Philippa Pierce. I did look to see if we could get a copy of it, and you can. It's 28p on Amazon.
Yeah, I imagine for season 1 they just read any old book they could get.
Yeah, and really, I don't have much more to say about this other than. Both of the long gags, the red button and the sofa, the payoff just wasn't fucking worth it.
Yeah, they had this ongoing thing with the desk, with the different buttons that do different things, and they kept saying, don't touch the red one, don't touch the red one, and it's a very silly joke of when he presses it at the end, and then a little sign pops up saying, I told you not to touch that one, and it's like... yeah, that's kind of funny. I mean, this is what I mean when I compared it to Friends. little kids will find this funny because it's just funny noises, and maybe they'll get one of the jokes. But for adults, I don't know. Because the Chuckle Brothers definitely did a lot of live shows during their years. And yeah, I don't know. Some of these jokes, like when he's mixing up Elton John lyrics, Goodbye Yellow Candle in the Wind, and Don't Go Breaking My Brick, like, some of them, the adults with their kids would laugh at, and then I think quite a bit of them, the adults would just be like, ugh, eye roll.
Yeah. So let's move on to the final episode. Season 21, episode 6, See How They Run. And now we've got the right credits. I mean, it's the right music, it's the right credits, so that I was a little bit more comfortable with that. But this is another odd episode in as much as there's not much actual Paul and Barry. They've got kid actors in playing childhood versions of themselves.
Yeah, so I looked into this. I didn't get a full story. I didn't get any interviews with the brothers. But essentially, I saw on the Wikipedia, the show was quietly cancelled due to low ratings. So This is not a finale. This is just the last episode of this season.
Okay.
And again, the two brothers kept doing the whole Chuckle Brothers routine until one of them died. They just kept going. They've probably done live shows and big performances and stuff that are like more fitting finales. But yeah, for the actual show, there is no finale. It's just one last episode. And it's unfortunately a really kind of annoying one because it's not the formula we're used to. It's not the actual Paul and Barry doing their double act, funny stuff happening. It's a flashback childhood story to two different actors, and they're not terrible actors, but they're not comedians. Their back and forth isn't anywhere near as fast as the actual Paul and Barry.
I did look him up, actually, and the boy who played young Paul literally did just this. The boy who played young Barry didn't do much else, but he was in a film called In the Flesh, a horror film, and he was also the little boy on the bus in Red Dwarf Back to Earth. So I've already podcasted about this kid on my Red Dwarf podcast, Shipwrecked and Comatose, and I sang his praises in that because he was a very important part of that particular episode, and he did a really good job of being an adorable kid. In this one, they both were okay.
Yeah, they're not bad. I looked them up as well, George Ray and Charlie Kenyon. I looked them up not to see what else they had done, but I wanted to see, by 21 seasons, was this an ongoing thing that they occasionally did? Like, once every other season. And no, unless they had other actors for different flashbacks, these two actors have only been in the show once.
I would guess it was the plan going forward as Barry and Paul got older to have these kids maybe be a part of it in flashbacks that gave them a lighter schedule, maybe?
Maybe, yeah. If this was a continuous thing, if this was like the third or fourth time we'd seen them, maybe that would be better as a finale. But no, this is the only time we see these two young Paul and Barrys.
I think the idea works really well, actually. I think it's quite cute. And looks-wise, the actors were good. The acting was not. But again, like you said, there was hardly any actual Barry and Paul, like the first episode, almost like a bookend. That there wasn't actually much of it.
Yeah, they're at the start, they're in the middle a bit, and then they're at the end. So it's kind of the formula that they settled with, which was they get into funny schemes together. In this one, it's not a job. It's the PE teacher really wants them to do a 5K fun run. I don't know why this is mandatory. I don't know why the PE teacher cares at all. But he really wants them to do it. But then he also doesn't want them to win. He wants his son to win. The first jokes are them trying to get out of it. And then when they're committed, because they win like a lifetime supply of sweets, then they do every kind of wacky races trick to try and win the race.
I put that it's like wacky races. Wow. And at one point, one of the kids just develops magic powers.
Yeah, that was a very kind of Wile E. Coyote Roadrunner joke. Except, so it's the joke of where they roll out a fake tunnel on a wall. And it works in those cartoons because you're looking at the painting from the perspective that it looks like a real tunnel. And then when the Roadrunner runs down it, it looks like a real tunnel. Whereas here in live action, it's shot at an angle where you can clearly tell it's just a painting. And then when the actor hits it, he magically teleports through it, which is not the joke. That's not how the joke actually works.
And I wasn't ready for CGI in ChuckleVision. That's not what ChuckleVision is. It's like massive low budget. Two blokes going to me, to you, to me, to you, to me, to you. Fucking hell. There was two CGI things in this. There was that, and there was CGI cement. What the fuck?
Yeah, that was a weird effect.
I just don't feel like CGI is my ChuckleVision. It was okay. It could have been worse, but I do wonder whether I'm just looking at this as a grumpy old man, because I also didn't like the fact that they referenced the internet. It felt like ChuckleVision is from a period of time where the internet didn't exist.
Well, they were a continuous show, so they must have... they were around when personal computers came into fashion, so I wonder how fast they caught on to that. Probably
not very fast, but at this point it was 2009. The internet was definitely a thing. I mean, I was playing World of Warcraft in 2009, so... and the only other thing I've put here is that the bloopers at the end was something I always remembered and enjoyed as part of ChuckleVision.
I remember that. But then, I don't know, they weren't particularly funny on this one.
No.
They didn't really seem like bloopers. They were literally just like bad takes.
Yeah. Fair.
To get through them, there were just a couple jokes I thought were sort of funny, when they sat on each other's shoulders to play Mrs. Chuckle. Kind of got a laugh out of me just because it was ridiculously tall and the kid was like, his head was touching the ceiling. It was kind of funny. And then, again, it's a very basic joke, but when they run through someone's house as a shortcut, and they keep interrupting this old lady. But then on the third time, she has like the little table of the water, like they're runners, and she's like cheering them on. Yeah, that's charming in a way.
Yeah, that was kind of cute. Alright, the other episodes we looked at were the Halloween specials. One from Series 1 and one from Series 8. Series 1 episode 6 was just called Halloween, and it starts with a pun about a mullet. But it's not about their hairdos, it's about a fish.
Yeah, so I don't have as many notes on this episode, and that's why I went to look for other episodes, other Halloween-y, scary episodes, because there's some jokes to this. There's a lot more back and forth, there's little puns and stuff, but it's a similar formula to the pilot. Season 1 was definitely trying to keep with this variety show format. Yeah. And I don't know, just a lot. Like, with that one, at least, they were just like, oh, we're going to do the weather, then we're going to do a news report. They were doing different sketches. And I felt like most of this episode was just them by this witch's cauldron. That seemed like the entire episode.
Yeah, and that's kind of Halloween-y, having a witch's cauldron, but I don't know. I just felt like the jokes, even worse than episode 1, just weren't very funny. And I remember as a kid, I would, over-exaggerate a fake laugh, and maybe that's why I liked ChuckleVision when I was really young. So I could do this fucking thing where I over-exaggerated how funny I thought something was, maybe. I don't know. Because this wasn't very good at all.
No, we're gonna compare this to the other quote-unquote Halloween episode, I guess spooky episode, and their on-location bit is they set up some tents, because Barry doesn't believe in the supernatural, and Paul wants to try and scare him, and there's just not really anything to it, is there?
It's just bullying. It's just horrid. It's bullying. And it's like, this is played for laughs when really, I don't know, it's not very nice.
I mean, it's kind of beyond stupid though, really, because so Barry gets in his tent, his little tent, and then Paul is standing outside going, woo, woo, trying to scare him. But then he looks away. Barry stands up in the tent. So then it's over him. So he sort of looks like a ghost. And that's enough to scare Paul into running away. It's like, what? It's such a limp joke to end it.
Yeah. And there's another armchair theatre, which is a book called The Wolves of Willoughby Chase by Joan Aitken, which I did read as a kid, actually. But it's not very Halloween-y. And again, 8 minutes out of a 20-ish minute show that's supposed to be the Halloween special with a book that isn't Halloween-y. It's like, oh, good.
Yeah, that's what is weird about this episode, because it's a variety show format, except it's just a variety of two. It's the story time, and then them at the cauldron. I mean, you could do like... Did you think of any Halloween activities? You know, like pumpkin carving, or like setting up decorations, making costumes, just anything like that. And no, it was just them trying to make some kind of potion in a witch's cauldron.
Yeah, and the whole ghosty-gerty thing, the payoff, well, it was hardly a fucking payoff at all.
Yeah. It's a good thing that I found the next episode, which I think steps things up considerably.
The one last thing I wanted to say about this was, in the last episode, the internet almost kind of time-stamped it. And in my head, ChuckleVision was kind of timeless humour. But in this one, again, a Patrick Moore gag time-stamped this. Because Patrick Moore was very, very famous in the 80s. And he became the Games Master in the 90s, so he's very famous in a different way. He was famous rather than as a astronomer, but as a video games character. But again, it was one joke that kind of time-stamped this that you couldn't then really call it timeless.
Yeah, that was the kind of reference that's for like the parents watching, isn't it?
Right, let's move on to Series 8, Episode 6, Chucklestein. And of course, Chucklestein, it's not even really a pun, is it? It's just Frankenstein with chuckle instead of Franken.
Yeah, it's very simple. But then again, we're not looking at this show for anything too clever.
No. And the one thing I noticed on the theme tune as well was that there's a wrestling episode of ChuckleVision. Maybe I need to look that up. With Paul Chuckle in like an Andre the Giant singlet. I think I might have to look that up. But this is the episode to me that felt the most like I remember ChuckleVision. It's actually a sitcom rather than the format of the 2 episodes we've looked at from Series 1 and the kind of weird flashbacky situation of the last episode. This really does feel like a sitcom and the basic premise of ChuckleVision.
Yeah, I saw, again, I didn't do deep reading, but when I was looking through the episodes trying to find anything that sounded spooky, it did give little updates and stuff. So, like, we have a new character here of, his name, he never had a name. His name was just No Slacking.
Yes, I remember him very much. And I don't really remember him being the no slacking catchphrase, but I remember him being mean and kind of like always their boss. I do remember this character, yeah.
Yes, I noted on Wikipedia he came into it in Season 2.
Do you know who he's played by?
I do, yeah. He was played by Jimmy Patton, part of the Patton brothers, and the Patton brothers happen to be brothers to the Chuckle brothers.
Yep. And you can see it. You can see the way they talk, that he sounds just like the other two. It's not very subtle, really.
Yeah, he definitely became a regular on the show. Pretty much, I won't say every episode because I can't remember the show that well, but he was definitely one of the bosses in a lot of episodes. And it was always like sort of the same character, but not. It was like always reset. Like there was never really a continuation. He always had a different job every time.
Yeah, and we mentioned the Chucklemobile earlier. We now have the Chucklemobile here, and I loved it. Because why wouldn't you love the Chucklemobile? This is very much the ChuckleVision I remember.
Yeah.
Whereas the other 3 episodes we've looked at were all a bit weird.
That's why I had to really find another episode, because I was like, we can't talk ChuckleVision when none of these episodes are standard ChuckleVision episodes.
This really felt like a proper standard ChuckleVision episode. It is their Halloween-themed episode, but it felt right. It was like putting on a comfy pair of slippers for me, this.
Yeah, I mean, it's the classics, as you said, it's a situational comedy. It's the Chuckle Brothers we know getting a new job, which is just selling, like, toiletry stuff, brushes.
Brushes door to door. I mean, that's a 90s job, isn't it? Door to door brush salesman. Fucking hell.
And yeah, that's the setup. You know, you do these types of jobs and you walk into a funny situation and funny stuff happens. And in this one, it's Frankenstein, really. He bumps into the equivalent of Frankenstein and the equivalent of the monster.
Well, he looks more like Michael Myers, actually, Dev.
Well, yeah. The actual Frankenstein's monster in this, he looks like the most bored Frankenstein actor I've ever seen.
So, he looks like Michael Myers. He's painted white, and he's not made from corpses. This has been so watered down to make it family-friendly that it isn't really Frankenstein at all.
Yeah, the monster himself is not a real presence at all.
No.
The actual doctor plays more of a menace in this, who is...
That's true, actually.
Again, child-friendly, called Dr. Bonkers. So it's not even it's not even an adaptation of Frankenstein. It's a very loose parody.
Yeah, well, it's a robot. It's not a person made from bits of people. The monster.
They do reference Frankenstein, but then just say he's made of like bits and pieces. They don't go into the details.
Yeah, and well, you know, this is the only episode of the 4 that we watched that has To Me, To You in it. And that's proper Chuckle Brothers, and they actually play on that, so they looks like they'd very much established it by this point in Series 8, that, you know, the To Me, To You thing is something that people will recognise, so they can play with it, where Dr. Bonkers says to me, and they accidentally give him the thing that they were trying to keep away from him. So, yeah, this very much felt like Chuckle Brothers to me. And also, the nastiness of Paul has been gently watered down, and it's more about Barry's almost doughy-eyed loyalty to his brother rather than being actively manipulated by his brother. So it just feels right. It just feels gentle, weekday afternoon, silly, childhood telly. And this felt like a nice pair of comfy slippers, like I said. I liked this episode a lot.
I did. I think my biggest compliment to it was, again, their repertoire is much better here.
Yeah.
You know, after 8 seasons. I think they came into this formula by season 2. So they've already had several seasons to get used to this. And I checked at one point because I was like, is my YouTube set to 1.25? I was like, this seems much faster than it was in season 1. And I was like, oh no, that's just them. Like, they're just much smoother at these back and forths.
And I think this is prime ChuckleVision. They are comfortable at what they're doing, but they haven't got super old like they have in the last episode. And whilst it's not laugh out loud funny, it's what you would expect from a kids' TV comedy show. You know, I've seen much, much worse than this.
Yeah, the jokes are very simple. Stuff like when Barry's trying to remember that story, and he's like, it's about these 2 fellas called Frank and Stein. Brilliant. Stuff like that, where it's like you kind of laugh at how stupid it is.
And 4 for 4, it's a terrible fucking payoff. I wonder whether there's any episodes of ChuckleVision that have a good payoff.
Yeah, there's definitely more, God, I don't even want to say stakes, but there's more happening in this one where Dr. Bonkers wants to take like half of Paul's brain and put it in the monster so that the monster can be smart enough to go around cleaning. And I kind of like the joke there where once Paul learns that, like, I'll be weighted on hand and foot then because... like, I can't look after myself. Like, once he realizes his life will be easier, then he's down with doing the operation.
It's very silly, and it's vaguely Halloween-y themed, which makes it vaguely horror themed. Yeah. I think if we hadn't done this one, we wouldn't have really seen real ChuckleVision.
Yeah, this is real ChuckleVision. We have to look into that now. We have to find an episode of ours where it's real ChuckyVision.
No, we don't. It might just be like, I don't know, one of the ones about the film, I suppose.
I guess so, yeah.
Maybe Seed of Chucky is our prime ChuckyVision. Maybe.
Are people already thinking of this show in the way that like the finale was, where they're like, oh, These guys are so old now, and they're still talking about Chucky.
I hope not. I was about to suggest we do a poll of what favourite episodes are, but I might get quite upset if the ones I like don't yet. But yeah, we did say we probably wouldn't have very much to say about ChuckleVision, but we have somehow managed to talk for over 40 minutes, Dev.
I think we guessed 30 to 40 minutes, and we did get quite meta about it ourselves in talking about what we were trying to do with the show.
Now, as I mentioned at the start of the show, a huge majority of our listeners are American, and we would love to hear what you think about this utterly ridiculous kind of British institution that is ChuckleVision. This podcast wouldn't exist, probably, if we hadn't had a stupid pun name that only British people would get. But I would love people who've listened to this and or watched ChuckleVision, who've never seen it before, who are like not kids and American. I'd love to know what the fuck you think about this batshittery. So do get in touch with us at ChuckyVision on Twitter. We'd love to hear what you think about this random shit that we've put in front of you.
That is the most glowing recommendation of this episode. And also our specials in between the seasons of Chucky.
No, some of them are relevant. The doll movie ones, I will stand by those. The crossover with Cinemortuary, less so. But still, I really enjoy doing these specials, and I hope that it's something fun for our listeners in between seasons of Chucky. So, Dev, I've enjoyed today, even though it wasn't really what we should have done. But it was, because it was a listener winner. So, Dev, where can people find you on the internet?
People can find me on Twitter at AbsoluteTravisT. People can find me over there. Outside of this, I'm usually writing written reviews on framerated.com. You'll find those always reposted on my Twitter. When this episode comes out, my big one for end of February, early March will be a retrospective on Cruel Intentions. I've a lot to say on that movie. It's very 2000s. Probably un-PC by today's standards, but it's,
I liked it at the
funny
time, but I would have been concerned about whether or not it's a bit yick, yeah.
I think it works for what it is. It's an insane movie, and I think it presents the characters as horrible characters.
100% would fuck Cruel Intentions Ryan Philippe, though.
Ryan Philippe is fucking crazy in that.
So fit. Anyway. So if you're looking for me, it's at MarkAdamsHC on Instagram and Twitter. I mentioned a couple of podcasts. One of them is still active. It's my Red Dwarf podcast called Shipwrecked and Comatose at Red Dwarf Pod on Twitter. The other one is Right in the Childhood, which is at RITC Pod on Twitter. But I don't really update that because there's no more episodes. But both of them are available if you search for them by name, wherever you are currently listening to this very episode of ChuckyVision. So thank you for joining us for an episode of ChuckyVision, and I'm delighted to say that we are so close now to part 2 of season 3 of Chucky, and in April we will be getting out weekly episodes as quickly as possible after the episode launches. We don't have screeners, so it won't be immediate, but we're doing our best to get them out as quickly as we can after each episode airs. So that's very much something to look forward to in the near future. So until then, wanna play?
ChuckyVision is a podcast brought to you by the We Made This Network.
Follow us on Twitter at ChuckyVision.
Follow the network on Twitter at we_made_this.
The logo was designed by Elliot Marriott.
Our cover art was designed by Amma at Amma's Comet.
And theme tune was composed by Dark Fantasy Studios.
Wanna play?
everyone, I'm Robert Turnbull, producer and co-host of You Have Been Watching, a podcast that takes a deep dive into the world of British sitcom. I and my co-host Alex Lynch take you on a journey through the weird and wonderful world of British sitcoms, looking at a range of different subjects and different shows, including classics like Fawlty Towers. In the same way as David Brent and Alan Partridge and Victor Meldrew, Basil works best for me when he is actually dealing with arseholes. The more forgotten oddities like The Asylum.
I don't know if I was necessarily a fan of it. It was a bit kind of... If I'd seen that on the Paramount Comedy Channel when I hadn't known who any of these people were, I probably wouldn't have necessarily enjoyed it.
And we even have top 10s like favourite sitcom theme tunes, or episodes dedicated to a subject like the quirk of recasting in sitcoms. Weirdly, I feel like the examples that I've been able to find of like properly recasting characters, like bringing new actors in to play the same characters, they tend to be bad sitcoms that didn't last very long. So do please come and give us a listen on the We Made This network. We're available on all podcast platforms and on Twitter at YHBWPod. So come and give us a follow, give us a listen, send us a comment, and let's all have a laugh.